who am I and okay. Let's start who am I and like why I'm invited to this panel discussion. So I'm a generalist. I call myself generalist for the past couple of years because I also want to acknowledge and claim this word. And I, like Büşra said, I'm cultural manager by education. I also do program creation, community building, facilitation, and I also write. I think writing is also supporting my whole theory and practical knowledge. Actually, I design and execute projects and programs focusing on the creative economy around different topics. So I started my career as undertaking independent and project-based roles between 2008 and 2010. And I started my like professional career as a full-time worker like at Istanbul Foundation Culture and Arts, where I was working as social media manager, where the whole social media actually born at that time in back 2010. And my thesis was also about the social media and using social media as a creative communication tool, because social media was also the very early days. It was also very connected with the community and audiences. So I'm happy that my career also started with that. And like Büşra said, in June this year, I founded my own consultancy company called Espas. And I also co-founded an initiative called Culture Unleashed around creative economy. I'm also a teacher. I'm a lecturer at the university. I teach arts marketing and audience development at Yeditepe University. And I'm also continuing my community and programming efforts by hosting Creative Mornings Istanbul for the past 7 years, actually. I'm also a member of the specialized committee on the diversity of the cultural expressions sub-working group of the Turkish National Commission of UNESCO. And I'm also like a member of a couple of advisory boards in Turkey. I will also share my LinkedIn profile via chat, so you can also connect me after the panel discussion. But let's start with the first topic, which is building communities. And let's start with a very brief description of the community. It's actually a feeling of fellowship with others. And by fellowship, I also mean the fellowship of the ring, like the also like the book and the movie. It's also a community. So a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing commons. These commons can be so many different things, such as goals, attitudes, memories, beliefs, purpose, or interests, any other interests. So a feeling of fellowship with others, it connects humans with different ties and relationships, and it also creates an emotional bond with others. So since we are all humans and we also need some connections with others, this also is that we also need a support and also we need an emotional bond with others. And the sharing commons are the sharing the identity with the others, and that also affect the belonging and the caring, and this also creates a mutual support between the community members, or let's say individuals. Okay, we have the community, we know what community is, but also the community building part is also very about the curation and the system. I brought a beautiful quote from Charles Fogel, which I also use very much in my practice. If everyone is inside your community, then your community cannot be distinguished from the no community. Acknowledging the boundary between your community and the outside world helps you create something as opposed to nothing. So let's actually dive into that quote. Sorry for my dog. Let me mute myself. Sorry for that. Is it too much or?
We actually don't hear.
Okay, cool.
Feel free.
So the first thing about the curation is asking who will be in your community and considering who shouldn't be. So this is not only about the people, but also the people outside your community, which might be audiences, but which might be also some other external people. So this is the first thing that will distinguish your community. The second thing is all about the boundaries, acknowledging the boundaries. You have to set your boundaries and don't be afraid to expand them according to your needs, because it's a continuing process. You have to expand the boundaries according to your needs. And the third thing is all about the outside world. So you have to understand where your community does begin and where does it meet to outside world. And in the next few slides, I will also talk about the audiences, which will also connect it to the community. So you can think about the community and audiences at the same time, and the connection between the community and the audiences. And the last thing is, rather than being an ordinary but crowded, try to be an original and niche. This is also something where I find the value inside of the community. So after the creation, we have a couple of pillars that we say that we can design or build the community. The words matter actually, but it's up to you if you use the community design, community building, community engagement. It's all about you, but the pillars are the same. So we always start with the people, with the individuals, with humans. So we ask the question, who is the community for? So with this question, we usually find out the definition of the community, the personas, and the creation structure. The second pillar we try to find out is the purpose. Why does the community exist? Why are we coming together? What kind of an impact do we want to build together? So this is also connected with the impact, the principles, the values that we will build for it, and the communication structure of the community. The third pillar is the system. How does the community work? How the system, the structure work? The first part of the system is the classification. The second part of the system is the actual financial structure. And the third one is the governance model. So all these comes together and create the system of the whole community. And the fourth pillar is the experience. This is also very much all about the community and the interactions. How does the community feel? Like, what kind of feelings do we want to encourage or nourish in the community? What kind of milestones do we have or do we celebrate? What are the connection points of the community within the system? And what kind of rituals we have? And by rituals, I don't only mean the like physical touch points or the physical rituals. This is also some rituals that you might also have in the digital, digital sphere. And the last pillar of the community design is the evolution. Before that, actually, we were using the word growth, but since the world is also changing, that I don't want to use the word growth, and instead of that, I want to use the word evolution on that. How does the community evolve? What kind of scalability we have within the community? What are the metrics we actually have within the community? And what is the evaluation metrics of the community? So these are the pillars that we use for the community design or community building. And from now on here, I'm actually passing to the engaging audience, how we are connecting the community and the audiences together. And I will also start with, again, like an introduction. What's an audience? It's an individual or a group of people who participate in any culture, in any medium, and in different ways. So who participate in culture? Actually, cultural participation in an activity that represents a way of increasing their own cultural and information capacity and capital. So by participation, we mean that it also has a way of increasing our own cultural and information capacity and capital. In any medium, cultural participation can be found in any mediums, such as literature, performing arts, visual arts, digital arts in this project, but it can be also in gaming, education. So in any medium, we mean the cultural participation. And by different ways, we can also say that reading a book, listening a radio or a podcast, watching a TV show, watching an opera can be a way of cultural participation, but also learning something new or criticizing, making a critic about an artwork can be also a cultural participation. So the ways that we participate in the culture that also change. That's why we also say that the audiences are also changing in our era. So let's move into the audience types. What kind of audiences we have in the theory? The first one is the audience by habit. So audience by habit is actually the people who regularly attend or participate in any cultural activity whose barriers to access are relatively easy to overcome. I will talk about the barriers in the next few slides. But the audience by habit is the first type of the audiences. The second type of the audience opportunities or maybe financial resources. And the third and the last audience type is the audience by surprise. These are the people hard to reach, maybe indifferent or even hostile, who don't participate culture for a complex of reasons, but this can also be related to the factors of social exclusion. That's why we also have to take care very sensitive way about the audience by surprises. So after the audience types, we also I also want to underline the process of the audience development. The audience developments are the activities which are undertaken to meet the needs of the existing and the potential audiences. So the existing audiences are the users of any cultural activity or any event, and the potential audiences are the non-users that you want to reach out, that you want to build, you want to grow, you want to engage. So the audience development process helps the cultural organizations to develop ongoing relationship with their audiences. It should be a planet and organization-wide approach. If you're a community, it should be a community-wide approach, how you can engage and how you can extend your audiences. And it's also extending the nature and the range of the relationships with the individuals, communities, and the wider public. And we also may need to develop specific strategies to draw in our users and non-users by addressing the root causes of their participation and non-participation. So we have to ask some questions. Why are they participating in any cultural activity? Why are they reading some books? Why are they not attending to a specific event? So these kind of questions and these kind of insights that we get through these questions are the process of the audience development. And like I said, I will talk briefly about the barriers. The first barrier, these are the barriers that audiences might have to not attend any cultural activity or event, or to not produce any cultural product or services. So these are the barriers that we have to first identify and then eliminate. So the first barriers are the personal, environmental, and financial barriers. These can be like the personal biases, the problems stemming from the social environments we have, or the education system, or the problems that we got through the education system. These can be also the financial factors, the resources come to the fore among reasons preventing large parts of the society from participating in any cultural life. So the personal, environmental, and financial barriers are the first line of the barriers. The second line of the barriers are the physical ones. These can be the infrastructural or similar tangible shortcomings preventing individuals with any form of disability, the elderly, and the children from accessing the arts, accessing to the culture. So these are the barriers that we call physical barriers. First, we have to identify and eliminate. The third barriers are the accessibility and safety. Accessing problems stemming mainly from the location, area, or the form of the culture products and services. Although these barriers have different characteristics for physical and digital experiences, we can address them under one heading, under one line called accessibility and safety. And the last barrier, but I think this is one of the most important ones, are the communication barriers. Mediums that we use for communications. The chosen languages are not the ones that we don't choose. The wording and the design systems of any cultural activity can be also a barrier that we might erase. So these are the barriers that we have to first identify as part of the audience development processes, and then try to find some ways to eliminate them. So after all these theory and after all these like structure, let's move on to the case studies where I actually use this theory and the practices in my work. So first, I want to show you the creative mornings. Maybe you all aware or you're attending in your city or country. So creative mornings is actually the world's largest face-to-face creative community. It started in 2008 in the New York City in United States. And right now, actually, we gather in 235 cities across 86 countries. The Creative Mornings events are for free, which is actually eliminating the financial barriers, for example. The Creative Mornings events are also between the local and the global, which is also creating eliminating the communications barriers, because in every single city, in every single country, we use the native language. So today, actually, Creative Mornings is one of the best or let's say most important case studies, which creates different type of audiences, but which is also very well community-powered series. The second case study that I want to bring today's discussion is the design calendar, which I was also a part of the community for a couple of times. So Design Calendar is a community for connection, creativity, and collaboration made by and for creatives. So this community is also a very much connected interdisciplinary community where you can find different resources, but this is also all about eliminating the barriers for the digital artists, designers, creators, and other types of creatives. The next case study, the next project is a Connect for Creativity, which I actually managed, which I led when I was working at Atelier. The project was like a 20-month-long project, but today I just want to briefly talk about the art and technology residency and exhibition part of the project. So as part of this project, we organized 3 art and technology residencies in different cities, Istanbul, Athens, and Belgrade, at the same time, synchronously, where we host artists from the UK, Turkey, Serbia, and Greece together, where they connect and where they co-build something together. And then we had an exhibition in London, in the UK, just at the beginning of the COVID-19 process in March 2020. We opened the exhibition of the project in the first week of March, where actually COVID-19 was spreading all around Europe. So after 1 week, we had to close it down. And then we got more financial support from the European Union. And we actually transformed the exhibition into a digital art exhibition in a very short time. where we also collaborated again with the artists as part of the residency. So this was also a great opportunity to find out in the very early days of the COVID-19 to transforming a physical exhibition into a digital one, and also having the both audience and community support in that era. The next case study is a program that I also led during my time at Atelier. It was a program where they opened their and the biggest at Apple and at where we bring the niche perspectives towards the city, and where we connect also the community, the creative community of Istanbul, with the wider audiences through different creative experiences like workshops, walks, screenings, and other across very different disciplines. So this was also a great project where we used the power of the local creatives, the local creative communities, and engaged them with the wider audiences with the technology of Apple. And the last case study is from Qatar, where I also engaged with Atelier team last year. And this was my first project where I worked as a freelancer with the Atelier. Al Najada. Al Najada is actually a production-oriented and inclusive creative cluster in the heart of Old Doha in Qatar, where we actually did a very long research and strategy project where I also worked with Atalay, and we host a multidisciplinary community and of emerging and established creatives around the top emerging areas of Qatar: the contemporary heritage, the culinary arts, and the digital experiences, where we try to host artists, creatives, designers, chefs, entrepreneurs in Al Najada, in this 17 houses of Al Najada. So this was also one of my last case studies around the community building and audience development efforts. So I just want to finish my presentation with some questions, maybe for Georgia or for the audiences here in this panel discussion. I just want to raise these questions. How do you connect your audiences with your community? How do you engage with your audiences? And how do you build your community with the right balances? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I don't know if I should take over directly or if you want to.
Yeah, Giorgio, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you, Emre. It was really, really informative. And it's interesting. A lot of the things you're saying are kind of connected to what I'm going to talk about. But let's just move into the next presentation. So first of all, I just want to thank everyone for being here today. I'm really excited and I'm really happy that I got this opportunity to share my experience, and also that you maybe get to ask me a lot of questions. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen. And please let me know if you can see. And can you see?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Yes, perfect. Okay, so I will just start from here. So yes, so when Atelier reached out to me, wanted to know how I could give some advice to people and on how to connect with creative worldwide. So I'll just dive into that. So my name is Giorgia. I'm originally from Italy. I lived in a bunch of countries. I lived in the UK. I lived in New Zealand for a while when I was 17. And before moving to Denmark, where I live now, I lived in Sweden. So I had a chance to learn a lot about different cultures. And now I'm here based in Copenhagen, where I've been living for the past 5 years. I work for a company called Design Matters. And there I am head of content and program, or more broadly, I deal with branding in general. So I want to tell you, first of all, you can find and give me a little stalk on my website and on social media. You can find me at Dodo and georgialombardo.com. But moving on, I want to tell you what my background is and what my company does, because maybe some of you have heard of us and some of you didn't. So Design Matters is a company organizing design conferences all around the globe, and it's usually for digital designers, or more broadly for designers in general. We do conferences in Copenhagen, Tokyo, Mexico City. In November, we're going to do a conference in Lagos, and next year we're working on a conference in Tel Aviv. And we also do a bunch of different events. Our team that you can see here on the side is really international as well. We have one person from Nigeria, one from Slovakia, the founder is from Denmark, one from Peru, one from Japan, and one from the Czech Republic. And that's something I really love, because I really enjoy learning about different cultures, and I'm so happy that I get to experience the same diversity inside my own team. So what I'm happy to bring to the table in my own job is that I get to organize events and conferences in Copenhagen, but also in these events, my main focus is in Copenhagen and Tokyo. And I get the chance to meet so many people, learn from them, but also to kind of merge the backgrounds that I have, because I do have a bachelor's in Japanese studies. So for me, being able to go to Japan and kind of apply what I've learned and keep adding to my knowledge and keep learning from the people is really the best. And when it comes to the conferences that we organize, Copenhagen is the most international one and also the biggest one. We have about 1,000 attendees coming from all over Europe. Before COVID, it used to be a lot more international. There used to be a lot of people from the US. We had 200 people just coming from Google, Instagram, and Meta. So now with COVID, things are a little bit different. So we have more people from Europe. But on the other hand, we managed to kind of reach other audiences. For example, with Tokyo, we have a lot of people coming from Asia and from Australia, and in Mexico, we kind of gather all the people from Latin America. So we kind of have these hubs, and let's move on. Here you can see some pictures of the different conferences. For example, one thing that you can notice is that no matter where you are, people kind of love doing the same. People love to connect. People love to share stories. People love to meet people that they have similar interests in, and so on. And as an organizer, as an event organizer, this is incredibly beautiful to see. But obviously, there are things that I've noticed as an organizer. For example, how do you make sure that people have a chance to actually connect, and to, how do you create the space for people to feel safe and to actually engage? So what we do as a conference, as a company, we try to create spaces where people feel included. For example, we try to bring on stage, and also with speakers, collaborators, as much diversity as we can. This means that we try to pay a lot of attention to, for example, including people that are non-binary, gender balanced, people that belong to the LGBTQ community, people that come from minority backgrounds, people that have disabilities, people that are neurodivergent, because we think that a community can be created when there is diversity that you can learn from, right? And then we noticed over the year that the more weight we have given to these elements, then the more different people have joined our community, and the more people have been open and so positive to the feedback. So another thing that is interesting for me as a person that goes out and scouts talent is how you as a digital creator or a designer can be seen, or how you can build your own community easier. Because for me, my experience as Giorgio is, how do I make the best for people to be seen and to connect with each other? But then I guess that you, as a person that is seeing this presentation today, you might wonder, but what can I do as a community, a person who wants to build a community or wants to be discovered? So I put together a bunch of pieces of advice that I would like to give from the bottom of my heart, and I'm just going to move on to them. So let's start. Can you hear me fine? Can you see fine? Everything good so far? Yes, cool. So the piece of advice number one is to make yourself reachable, to make yourself noticeable and foundable. So when I go out and scout for talent, it's important that you have a good website, that there's good enough SEO, that you have your social media channels in place, that your contact info is out there. Because you can't imagine how many times I've seen someone that has beautiful art, beautiful work, and then there's no way for me to find and contact them. So make sure that the basics of your online presence are out there and they're solid. And so you don't want to lose opportunities. So make sure that this little part that seems so small and insignificant is out there. You can't imagine how many people I've met that say, well, I'm an artist, I'm not on LinkedIn, and that's completely fine. But then make sure that your presence on Behance or other tools like that is solid. So that's number one. Number two is have empathy and engage in the most authentic way you can. Because we always talk about, having skills and, being the top of your class and all these things. But when you are building a community, it's so important that you use the social intelligence and that you use empathy, and not in a fake way, but in a very vulnerable and honest way. Because it's true that when you meet someone new, you want to share everything about your work, or maybe you want to know about other people's work. But the fact that you are aware with, what you're experimenting with, where did you fail? What is it that you're learning? People love to hear these things, because being vulnerable makes people truly connect. So keep in mind that your point when you meet new people and you want to build a community is not reaching perfection, because no one will ever be perfect, but just be genuine and be yourself, because you can't imagine how much people appreciate that, because they think, okay, no one is really perfect, so we can maybe bond over this and maybe improve each other. Yeah, thank you for the heart. So, okay, let's move on. Let me take a sip of water. My piece of advice number 3 is to try to learn about cultural differences and norms. For me, this is something that is really close to my heart, because the first time that I moved outside of my country, I was 17. It was when I lived in New Zealand, and I was just thrown to the other side of the world, different time zones, different seasons. I didn't even have an iPhone at the time. So the only thing that you can do is to kind of sit down and look around, observe people and see what they do. And then you'll soon realize that people are actually curious about you. And for you, this is such a great opportunity to expand your horizons, not just as an artist, of course, but also as a person. And I think these two elements are so fundamental, because on a personal level, you get to really see other things and see other perspectives and learn things that maybe you never really thought about before. But even as an artist, or in general as a designer, or kind of whatever creator you are, you can learn so many things that maybe you were never taught in school, and suddenly you know about, and it can improve your art so much. So make sure that you find all the opportunities that you have to expand your horizons. And that means, as Emre was saying before, educate yourself. You can read, you can attend local events, you can find a pen pal, you can travel, obviously, if you have the means, but there are so many opportunities for you. Even, go to the most international part of your city and see what there is, right? The opportunities are out there. You just need to go and grab them. And moving on. That goes to point number 4, that is, be curious, but also be patient, and also be very persistent. Because sometimes I think what once Lady Gaga said in an interview, that she had to go through so many people not believing in her before she could be so famous. And that is true, because it's so true. When you get out there and then someone doesn't give you attention, you think, okay, and then I'm not good enough. But that's not the case. The whole point is to keep trying and to keep improving yourself, and to see what you can do to be out there more, to make the right connections and so on. But also the point of being curious is not just for the fun of it, because of course some people are more curious than others, but think about the society that we live in. It's so competitive and it's changing so fast. You've seen that with COVID, how much the whole world had to kind of readjust. And even for us community creators, before COVID, everything was in person. And then when COVID happened, we had to think, okay, now we switch online. And then people suddenly started using Zoom and other tools. And then now that COVID is obviously still existing, but we're slowly moving back to what is normal, the life that we live in is not exactly as pre-COVID. So we see how society is constantly changing, and we have to do the same. So imagine what happened if you couldn't have the job that you have now. What if, what if you couldn't be a community person? What if you couldn't be an artist anymore? What could you do? And that's why being curious is so important, because you need a sort of parachute kind of plan, a plan B that could save your life in case, shit hits the fan, right? So think always about the future. It's almost like a little tree with branches, right? Now you're following one branch, but it might be that at some point in your life, you have to abandon the branch you're on and you have to jump onto another one. So being curious and acquiring knowledge and acquiring connections, that can really save your life one day. You know, you might go to an event and then meet a person that might seem just like a fun person to talk with, but maybe in 2, 3, 4 years time, they might have a cool job for you. You never know, right? So that's another piece of advice from my heart. And moving on to number 5 is to find a local. And this is a big learning that we as a company had working with Mexico and Japan. So you cannot think that what works in your country or in the environment that you know will work in another country as well. So for example, what we figured in Mexico is that people want to speak Spanish and they don't want to speak English. Whereas in Japan, they would love to speak English, but they sometimes don't feel comfortable enough. So you need to adapt to these wants and needs that people have. So how do you try to connect with these different needs and wants? So as an organizer, of course, for us, it's really important to find a local, because not only they're good at telling you, oh, go to this place. This is a place that people love to go. So if you're creating an event or some social gathering, then that's a popular place. But it's also what is okay for you to say and what is okay for you to do. There are some things, for example, that are considered okay in our Western culture, but is not so okay in the Japanese culture. One thing that I learned, for example, is that in Europe, in general, people are very informal. They say, hi, how are you? They even hug. But then if you go with the same approach in Japan and you go for a hug, people are just frozen. They don't do that. Or even the way they connect. It's very digital. In Denmark, for example, people, they just want to exchange the LinkedIn account, the link, or they want to say, oh, follow me on Instagram, which is pretty informal, but that doesn't really happen in Japan. What they do instead, they use still the business cards, they call meishi, and there's a whole way to exchange them. So you have to give them with 2 hands, and when you receive them, you also receive them with 2 hands, or you kind of do kind of this. But then if they're above you in a sort of hierarchical way, then you have to receive underneath them. There's so many small cultural things that you should be aware of. And if you're lucky enough to having studied them or to having lived in a place like that, then you know. But if you don't, that's why a local can truly save your life. So that's it. And moving on, what I was saying now, talking about events, is attend events and network as much as you can. I know it can be really difficult if you are an introvert. Also for people that are neurodivergent, it can be really, really draining. It just sucks all your social battery. So it's really up to you to find the good balance of attending events. It can be in person and online, because they can truly help you create long-lasting connections, and you can meet people that might become your colleagues, or you become their colleagues, or you create a project together. And another thing that is important that I will not stress enough, I mean, I will never stop stressing it enough, is that when an event is over and you meet someone, just make sure that you follow up and then you thank them. Because imagine that you're going to a big event and then you end up meeting hundreds of people, and then you add 1,000, 100 people on LinkedIn, or you get the business cards of so many people. You will kind of mix people up. You will think, oh, the one with the big glasses, or the one working on that project. But then there will be some people that stand out a little bit less. So how do you make sure that you are remembered? And a good way is to follow up and say, oh, it was great to meet you today. And then from there on, you could continue a conversation that you started in person, or maybe a new conversation can start. So you need to be a social butterfly sometimes. I know it can be difficult, but that's how it is. And another thing that I really suggest that kind of ties into what Emre was saying before is that you need to find your niche, and you need to find how you can create value, because you need to be able to balance being yourself and being true to your values and to your core beliefs, but at the same time, you need to make sure that you stand out for the right reasons and not the wrong ones. So the content that you create and that you put out there, is it informative? Is it inspiring? Is it funny? Like, what is it that makes you stand out from the others? And figuring that out sometimes can be a long, very introspective personal journey that doesn't come easy to everyone. Sometimes people even take 10 years to figure out what is it that makes myself so special. So once you really figure out what makes you you, that will be already a big step for you to create a community, because then people will want to, you know, connect with you. An example that I'm thinking about is Pablo Stalny, which maybe some of you know. He is an illustrator, he's a creative, and he's from Mexico City. And he and his team are amazing at doing this, because he knows that he has a very quirky personality, but instead of being ashamed of it, it just uses that for social media and for, you know, being himself, and people love him for that. It's kind of insane to see when I went to Mexico City last year for work, the amount of people that even like recognize him in the streets. And it's not like he's a VIP or anyone. It's just a very creative guy that somehow people ended up following. So this has so much power that you would never believe. I think I'm running short of time. Okay, so number 8 is avoid assumptions. So again, going back to learning about cultural differences, think about the way you were raised and think about the place you grew up in, right? For me, this came as a point of awareness when I started traveling and moving a little bit around the world. You see reality through the way you were up, brought up, through the values that your family gave you, through the cultural values that you grew up in. So in the end, you see the world as if you were wearing glasses with colored lenses. At some point, you don't even realize that you're wearing glasses. You think this is the reality it is. But then when you start seeing other points of view, because you talk and you work with other people, because when you travel, when you just work with, in general, with people from a different country, or even people with a different opinion from yours, you realize that maybe even a simple thing like drinking coffee is not the same, because for someone, drinking coffee is always with milk. For other people, coffee is always cold, right? Simple, almost stupid things like this are so noticeable. But imagine what they can become when it's so much bigger stuff, like the core values that make the foundation of your work. So it's impossible to be unbiased, because unfortunately, if you have a little bit of knowledge on or just the basics of behavioral science, you know that humans need biases and they need stereotypes to kind of function in society. This is what was helping us as prehistoric people to be safe. But in the society that we have today, we can just work on our awareness. We can try to figure out, why do I think like this? Just asking ourselves these questions can help us become a little bit more aware. So at least we know that when we go in a group that is very diverse from us, we can expect that people might not think the same way we do. And for example, there's people that have more of a individualistic or maybe more collectivistic approach to work, or in general to the way we socialize. For example, I noticed that when I work with Americans, it's also about I, me, I, but not because they're mean, just because they're in the society they live in, they're just used to placing more importance to their individuality. But when I work with people from China or for Japan, it's really hard to get their personal opinion out. So first they need to make sure that the whole room agrees, and then they feel like they're safe in expressing their opinion. So just knowing these things will make you a little bit of a better communicator. And again, as I'm saying in the slides, so try to avoid making assumptions. Of course, you need to be aware of cultural norms, but at the same time, keep in mind that you're always talking to a single person. And maybe, imagine like a graph, right? You have the majority of the people behaving a certain way in the middle, but you always have the people in the extreme left and right of the graph. So there will be people not behaving like you would expect. So in the end, keep in mind that it's the person and not the stereotype that you're talking to. And number 9 is build trust and rapport. So it's important that when you meet new people, you make sure that they can trust you. And first of all, the only thing that they can do is observe your actions and observe what you say. So if your actions match your words, then that's a really good first step to create a community, because they can see that if you say something and if you promise something, then you're going to deliver it. And that will kind of build slowly over time. But so I would say that maybe don't overpromise and underdeliver. I would always say to the other way around, maybe only promise what you know that you can 100% deliver, and maybe surprise them and do more, because that will really help create a lot of trust. And last, number 10 is learn nonverbal communication cues. And that's really important where you're in a group of people, or also when you talk to people that are from other countries. This can be really difficult because, for example, I know that in some parts of Italy, people do any means no. And I noticed that sometimes people have no idea what this means. So either you just become clueless and you don't know what to do, or you just ask questions, right? So that is a good way to, learn nonverbal communication cues. So either you ask, or you observe, or you do some research, but figuring out the way people behave and observing what people do around you is a really good way to blend in and to make sure that people feel welcome and safe around you. Another Another thing to keep in mind is the symbolism and, for example, the colors that you use in your work, in your art. Again, an example is my boyfriend works in video games, and once they were using an owl in a video game, and then the team that was very multicultural, for some people in Europe, the owl was seen as a symbol of wisdom, but then another person was from an Arabic country said, no, this is the bad omen in my country, so we can't use this. So this is, again, an important point for you to keep in mind when you are trying to build a community that is multi and intercultural. And I think we're running out of time, so I'm going to stop here. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Georgia, both Georgia and Emre. I think it was like, I saw like people, I don't know, taking notes, listening. I was also like, it was really inspiring. So maybe like I can start with like reminding our audience, like we are like, looks like slightly out of time, but we're planning to extend our time like between 10 to 15 minutes. So please feel free to stay here and you can start like forming your questions. I will just like direct a couple questions to Emre and Giorgio to just initiate the conversation, and then feel free to unmute yourselves and ask your question, or if you feel like I don't want to use my voice, you can just type your question on the chat and I can voice them over for you. I want to start with this question actually, like both like Emre, this is a question for both of you, and like considering both of your backgrounds, and even though you're doing like really different kind of community building work, you also have so many common backgrounds like communication, marketing, and different strategies. And you also had experiences in like, you represent global organizations or a part of a global community, or you're building a community for a global purpose, but you also have the need to operate or get into the lens of a local scope. So it's kind of like a think global but act local kind of a need. And seems like you both are like doing amazing work, like executing and delivering that work. So I was thinking like, what would be the like some learning experiences or barriers you saw, or like mindsets, suggestion when it comes to creating and delivering this kind of work, especially like connected to the digital arts, like when it comes to the strategy, communication, and the design of these experiences? It was a long question, but I hope it landed.
I guess I can start. So I think I'm going to start with the first part of your question. So acting local, but with a global community, with something that we do a lot in our job. Is something that I guess we touch, I think is really relevant of your community, of your local area. And I think, for example, let's say people come to Denmark, people come to Copenhagen from all around the globe to listen to our talks and come to our conferences and to connect with us. And they often have an idea of what Denmark is like. They often think, oh, Scandinavian design, everything is clean, everything is beautiful. But then they come here, and then we on purpose chose conference venues that are maybe a little bit rough and a little bit industrial, or we take them to places that they wouldn't expect, or we have conversations about, no, actually Denmark is not just, beautiful design, it's also ugly design, but people like it anyway. So I think an important point in building communities is to be honest and show what actually is the reality of your life, because then people see that, oh, maybe this is not what I was expecting. So I think that is a point. I know it seems weird because you think, how is it showing something unexpected a good way to build a community? But I've seen that it really helps, because people say, oh, okay, that really opened my mind, thank you for showing me this. And then they get curious, because the next time they feel like they want to know more. But on the other hand, then they feel like they want to do the same, and they invite you to their place and they say, oh, please come to my community and I can show you what it is actually like and not what people think it is. I don't know if you really answered like the first part of your question, but that's what I feel like was important to say.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Okay. Maybe I can just briefly talk about the like the most like influential part of the whole process in that sense. I think it's the research part. Like either you are like building a local community or want to like get big and go global, or do you want to like change your community after a time? Like you have to do a research, like a comprehensive research about understanding the needs, the barriers, the opportunity areas, whatever you are looking for. They are there. Like you have to find out what's important for you as a community builder, or also a member of the community, because even if you are a community builder, you are also a member of that community. You have to enjoy, you have to learn with them, you have to act with them. So you have to not only think about them, you also have to take care about yourself, and you have to also make do a comprehensive research. So I think for me, like the most convenient and the most influential part of the whole process about like your question is the making a research. And since I'm also I'm also keen to learn other people's behaviors, other people's decisions, it's also a fun process for me, because like, for example, like my favorite class in my master's degree was like the consumer insights, where my other mates at the class were enjoying the digital marketing, social media, or the AI emerging tech, where I was like deeply enjoyed with the consumer insights, the techniques, the research techniques, the sociology. Like these were some of the stuff that I was really enjoying. That's why I can answer very briefly as the research is the most important part of the whole process.
Thank you so much. Tanya, I think you had a question. Please feel free to voice it over.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Giorgio and Emre. Really nice to see you, and thank you for inspiring presentations. My question is connected to somehow the digital extensions of physical communities. Both of you spoke so much about the physical connections to gather people in one place, and we know that now we can also complement that activities with the digital extension. We have so many channels, sometimes are overwhelming, sometimes are overwhelmingly excited channels for prolonging these connections that we build physically. We have Discord and WhatsApp and so many dedicated platforms that brands or communities create for those aspects. And my question is, I think personally that is, of course, a tool that is very valuable for extending and prolonging these connections between people. But how can we also have in consideration all these biases, all this, how we can nurture the same way these digital communities as we do it physically? Do you have any challenges or tricks and tips that you share with us? Because of course these communities in digital world also exist in your lives and work today.
I'll go first. Okay, so that's a really good question. For us, we have noticed that we tried many different tools, as you said. You know, we tried Slack and it feels very professional, but people don't feel like they can connect. Yeah, someone knows Butter already. And after trying so many things, we figured that Butter is the one that works best because it kind of has a big playful element to it, and people can interact. It almost feels like half a conversation, half a workshop, and people can vote, people can react. And it's really inclusive of people of all, you know, of all the spectrum of extrovertness. Like people that are very extroverted can speak, people that prefer to just leave reactions can do it, people can type. It's so inclusive, and that's what works best. But I still think that nothing has really topped the in-person connection, just because it's so difficult to make eye contact, to read body language. So that is still a challenge that we have. But for example, we figured that we run online events every month or every 2 months, and that really helps. Another thing is when it comes to, you know, these biases that you mentioned, I think really it's a lot on the organizers and the single person, because we had some classes where we taught people behavioral design, and that was a really big success. And that really helps, but it doesn't solve the problem completely. So, and that's why we've seen that people prefer to go back to an in-person kind of setup and scenario. But another thing that we figured works really well is that if people have a chance to meet online, like on Butter, for example, then when people get a chance to meet in person, it's a completely different feeling, because people feel like they know each other already. So my suggestion is to gamify the experience as much as you can, instead of just choosing these, you know, frontal ways. It could be Google Meets or Zoom. I mean, they do work, of course, but it's not as inclusive as other tools like Butter. That's what I think.
Thank you, Giorgio. I think like Butter is like the in the very end of the whole line when you compare it with the Zoom, Google Meet, and the Microsoft Teams and everything. Like it's very inclusive, but at the same time it's very fun. Like you said, it's very fun, and the fun element is very crucial in this kind of interaction and engagement when it comes to digital, especially. For me, I think there are two aspects of your question, Sanya. I think the first one is the dedication. I actually learn and enjoy much more in the digital area and the digital sphere, where there is a dedicated community manager and a community program, where actually a community manager asks some questions in Slack or in Discord, open up the conversations, introduce people, like select some hot topics, share the events or resources, connect people. So I think for me, the one of the very like most important things as part of the digital sphere is having a very digital first and dedicated community manager, because it's completely different than any other in-person like face-to-face community or events. And the second thing is actually I think educating people. Like Georgina said, like people might have biases for the like these kind of tools, digital tools, but these biases are something that you can eliminate through education. So if you are like choosing using either Slack or Discord or any other community tool, you have to spare some time about educating people. How do they can use these tools? How and why these are like communities? How and why these are fruitful for their day-to-day conversations? So because every every single individual has different are different layers of the technology understanding and knowledge. So you have to be prepared for them. So and it doesn't like there is no one single recipe for every single individual. So for some people you have to prepare a pre-recorded video or a manual. For some people you have to make an online session where they can share their questions. For some people you have to use a, let's say, co-using session where you use with them the tools. So or maybe you can share tips and tricks every single day so they can understand. So this is a process. The education part is the process, and what you need for that process is actually A, passion, and second thing is B, the time, and third is patience.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I was with that on my mind. Digital literacy of people. Sometimes we have people from different backgrounds and different ages, also with different ways of relationship with the technology and apps and notifications and the netiquette that people sometimes don't know exactly how to behave or just transport the physical interactions to digital interactions and starts to overwhelm others or be overwhelmed with and well, the particularities of the digital extensions. Thank you so much for replying to my question.
That's a good point. There's also another thing that you made me think of is maybe another thing that can help is before you join an online meeting that you're creating is to create a set of rules of what is okay, what is nice to have, and what is welcome. Because, for example, we had a very international meeting once, and some people were hiding. So it was around lunchtime for different parts of the world. Some people were happily eating on screen. Other people were not eating at all, and other people were trying to hide it. And you would see that we're trying to be respectful. So I think setting a bunch of rules that even for these simple things, like, is it okay to eat? Is it okay to be on and off screen? Is it okay to leave for a second if you need to go to the bathroom? Like, these things are, they're human needs, right? We have them, but making sure that people know what is okay and what is not beforehand, that's a great help.
Thank you so much. Thank you for raising your question, Tanya. And we have another question on chat from Fatma. Fatma, I will voice over your question, but if you feel the need to elaborate on it, please feel free to unmute yourself. The question is, I have heard from a few founders that it's almost impossible to make it work when it comes to being a work team with your best friends, relatives, or boyfriends/girlfriends. What are you thinking?
Boundaries. It is such a personal question, right? I know people that are partners in life, and then they're also partners at work, right? It is really such an individual thing, right? It depends on what the people involved are comfortable with. But again, I think the most important thing is, again, boundaries. Like, let's say your colleagues, what is it okay to talk about at work and what is it okay to talk about at home? Because maybe you just need to make sure that certain topics that are work related are never touched at home, because it's really easy to end up in a conflict situation, I think, if you have so much contact every day, right? Because you spend 8 hours about a day together working, and then you spend other 16 hours of your time together with your partner or your family. So it can be really difficult. So again, a set of rules helps, but I personally wouldn't like to be so involved with maybe a best friend or a partner, just because I know that then the things would match so much. But this is very, very personal preference. And I know that there's people that are partners in business and in life that are super successful.
Thank you. Emre, do you have anything to add?
I don't have, because like I never worked like I think I always work with like people that I have the same same feelings or same like same opportunities. So I have never experienced like working with my partner, with my boyfriend. But I think what I can say is like I think making it work is all about the people, all about the individuals. It's not like even like if we share our experiences or some ideas or some like suggestions, it will not work in other people. That's why I think it's all about the individuals in that relationship, in that team, and in that community.
Thank you. Maybe I also wanted to add like a tiny note. For instance, this can also be in between like the members of a community. Like I'm the kind of like the community manager at Atölye Community, and my brother is also one of our community members. And for instance, I love him dearly as a person, but I so don't like him as a community member and in the way that he contributes to community. So you can also see like different versions of the people you're in life in different communities. And Mitana is raising her hand, so please go ahead and ask your question.
Hello, and thank you so much for this presentation. It was really, really interesting. Okay, so mine is more like an advice kind of a thing that I would ask. I recently moved from one place to another, and I was living in Mexico for about 10 years, where I worked and I had my community and everything. And recently I moved to Portugal, and here I have no communities. So I've been to many places, like right now here, and I go a lot to exhibition. I'm an artist, but it's still for me kind of complicated how to do. I'm a bit of an introvert when I'm in certain situation, especially work related. Like, how is the proper way to approach somebody to like try to be in a community with people who minded like you? What's the appropriate way to approach them and let them know you would like to be a part of their community without look like a complete psycho and be like super desperate? And I don't know, how is the best way, as you people have so many communications with so many new people, how is the best way to do it?
I can feel your struggle, because I had a similar struggle when I moved to Denmark, and they say it's one of the hardest places to make friends in Denmark. I don't know if it's true, but I definitely know that everyone that moves from one place to the other has the same struggle. I would say that a combination of online and offline really helped me. So, for example, I discovered that I was trying the wrong ways in Denmark when I moved. I was trying to approach people in, these exhibitions, public spaces that you would think are okay. I don't know if Porto is the same. Maybe you need to do a little bit of research on what people do. I think it's an important thing to do. Well, like, do people hang out? Is it okay for people to approach you? For example, coming from Italy, and I was very much of an introverted back then, I never had an issue with people approaching me, and I wouldn't have to make the effort because people would come to me. But then in this country, people don't do it. Or if I go up to someone at a bar, or if I go up to someone at a museum or an exhibition, people look at you weird, thinking, what do you want from me, right? So I figured that connecting with people online first actually helps in Denmark. Another thing that seems crazy, I created an account on TikTok, and I made a simple account, with a bunch of videos saying, I'm Giorgio, I'm come from this place, I'm an artist, I'm a designer. Is there anyone that is in a similar situation? And that had about like 6,000 views in 2 days. It went insane. And from that, people said, I'm in a similar situation. And then a group was created on Facebook, and now there's a thriving group of people from other countries. So from a very small thing, just where you just say, hey, I'm new, I'm vulnerable, I need community, I need friends, then you will find so many other people that are in a similar situation. So maybe I would try that, see if you can have a hook online first, and then you move in person, which is funny because it seems going against what we just said so far, right? That everything is so great in person, but online stuff and social media can really give us a big, big hand.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, I will try that. And yes, I will go to Porto to see the Creative Hub, definitely.
Maybe I can add something very briefly, because I don't have any experiences like this, because for the past 36 years, I live in the same neighborhood, in the same city, in the same. So I never left my neighborhood, even for educational purposes as well. So, and this is actually unfortunate. I would love to have this experience, like moving somewhere else, meeting with other people, maybe being by myself, alone, feeling loneliness. But what I actually, what I can maybe suggest, other than that, enjoying yourself, because when you travel and when you go somewhere else, when you are all by yourself in somewhere new, first thing that you have to try is finding your people, finding your other community members, finding other people that you might interact. But people sometimes forget to go back into their own self. So what I can suggest, maybe enjoy yourself, go to the cinema by yourself, have a drink, have a cocktail by yourself, doing that. This might also help you to find your people in a different way. Maybe you will meet someone in the cinema while you are watching by yourself, enjoying yourself. Maybe people might ask lighter in a bar, and you will like answer them, "Oh, I don't smoke," or "Please here." And this will start a like inorganic conversation, and that might create a chance. So I think obviously and definitely like having more intentional discussions or like meetings will help you, but also leave some space for like unexpected encounters.
Yes, good advice. Thank you.
Thank you so much for asking your question, Mitana. Emre, Georgia, thank you very much for your time and all the knowledge, insights panel. We don't have any questions from the audience, and we're like more than 20 minutes over our time. So I think it's a nice moment to wrap up. Thank you very much, and I will just pass the mic to Atalay to close the session.
Thanks so much to you both, Georgia, Emre. It was so insightful and inspiring. Thank you so much. And once again, thanks so much for accepting the invitation to be with us on this very sunny and a bit rainy in Copenhagen Saturday. And thank you to you as well for the great moderation. So this was the last panel discussion of the module 3. So we ended the another module, and we're welcoming our very last module next week with only one remaining panel discussion called Challenges and Solutions in Artistic and Creative Entrepreneurship. And in this panel discussion, we'll uncover the secrets to turning your artistic passion into a profitable career. So I cannot wait for it, honestly, and I'm hoping to see you all there and wishing you a great week ahead. Goodbye.
Thank you.